Welcome to the Recruitment Hackers Podcast, a show about innovations, technology, and leaders in the recruitment industry. Brought to you by TalkPush, the leading recruitment automation platform.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Recruitment Hackers Podcast. I'm Max, and I have invited today to our podcast, Mr. Craig Sweeney from WilsonHCG. Welcome, Craig.
Hi, Max. Glad to join you today.
Thank you. Thank you for joining and putting yourself in front of the computer on such a beautiful sunny day. I can see the weather is unusually balmy in Manchester.
It really is. Yeah, this is the one day of the year the sun comes out and it's not cloudy and raining, which anybody who's been to Manchester before would know is the usual blend of weather we have here.
Amazing, amazing. Here in Hong Kong, we are locked at home, unable to go to work because of a typhoon. So it'll come your way. You should get there in about 3 months' time.
Stay safe.
So Craig, tell us what you do and what your company does.
Okay, so WilsonHCG, for those of you who don't know us as an organization, we're a talent consulting firm largely built around RPO solutions, but more broadly around anything really that links to talent acquisition from a consulting perspective, from contingent workforce solutions, as well as our kind of core RPO solutions. My role within the business here is as part of our executive team, I lead everything around new client engagement. I've got a global team that stretches from Japan, Singapore, through Europe, and then into North America. And within my remit is our new business growth team. We've got our solutions team and then our implementation function. So essentially my group owns everything before a client actually goes live and becomes a client of ours.
Okay. New solutions team, you call us, right?
Yeah, so we've got a technical solutions team that help to architect the solutions that we're actually putting in place for clients, both commercially, but also in terms of their structure. When they're complex global solutions, it takes some detailed kind of building out to have the right capability, and particularly when that's encompassing things that aren't just one type of hiring. It may be that we're hiring for specialist roles, high volume roles, graduate and internships, all within the same solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Building that out and making sure we've got the right team to deliver for our clients when it's on a kind of medium or large scale is often quite complex.
I guess the bigger the volume, the more technology seeps in, and then the lower the volume, the more an organization like yours will be competing with maybe smaller staffing firms. Is that a fair statement?
I would say increasingly technology is important in most scales of solutions that we build out, because I think even for those organizations that are maybe just recruiting in the hundreds rather than the thousands, having the right technology in place to help fulfill their critical business impacting roles through whether or not that's through engagement, attraction, or building out future talent pipelines is all really important. Creating a great candidate experience and making sure we're out competing some of the other businesses that are trying to hire the same talent is super important.
You may have seen in the news that there's been a little bit of M&A this year in the technology space. Just last week, there was a company called Alio that was acquired by HireVue. There was a Sunroo in the UK that was acquired as well over the summer. It seems to me that video, I don't know if it's hot or not, because sometimes, it's definitely being talked about a lot in the age of remote hiring and work from home hiring as the killer app. 15 or 20 years after its conception, it's its first iteration. But at the same time, it looks like those companies never really got to the next stage. And I'm thinking about it because you're talking about hundreds of hires, and I guess with these kind of environments, video interviewing, even then, for an executive hire, you don't know if you're going to use video interviewing for an executive level hire, basically, right? It's going to be a little bit awkward to do an asynchronous video interview.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Video interviewing, as you say, has been around for many years. I think right now, everybody in the short space of time, with everything that everybody's gone through over the last 6 months, 8 months, video technology has just become part of everybody's life. If I'd have talked to my parents about doing a video call, a year ago, they would have gone, wow, that's crazy. Or people actually thinking about doing interviews over video, they would have, said that's not possible. But actually now, I think it's just crept into society. And that's when you really start seeing, I think, change happen very quickly, is when it just becomes accepted that this is a way that people operate. So it doesn't surprise me that video is kind of sat at the core of some of those acquisitions right now.
Yeah. It's no longer, but now these companies have to add other things, right? Because video is so omnipresent and everywhere that it's just not enough to do just video, right?
Agree.
That's the realization. And so are the big guys, like the big enterprise software company like SAP and Oracle, do they have a live video native solution? Do you know?
I don't believe so, but whether or not there's products that are in development, possibly.
They can always do plugins anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so this is a very general question for an RPO, a recruitment process outsourcing specialist. You're asked to deliver on number of hires, right? The number of hires and then retention after that, probably your two key driving metrics. With that, do you also get certain targets around, well, we want you to replace, this, we want you to change this process and we want you to change this piece of technology? Or it's more of a, deliver the hires at whatever cost you want and using whatever technology you want. We just want the results.
Yeah, I think there's, I've been in and around RPO since before it was called RPO. It was, before it even took on that title. And I think if you look at the history of how RPO has evolved and developed, if we were talking 15 years ago, RPO was very much a transactional solution for most organizations, where it was around how do we deliver on a certain volume of hiring and just do that quicker and more effectively, and often at lower cost than we're doing it ourselves today. I think over the course of the last 5 years in particular, maybe slightly longer, the strategic capability of RPOs has just exponentially grown. So I think, and those measures that you mentioned before are still a component part of what we have when we're delivering for a client. So it is still around, a volume of hire and some of those key metrics that we have to operate to that. But actually, it's a much more holistic solution now, where we are looking at technology that we're bringing to the table, either to provide a better candidate experience, provide better capabilities to be able to pipeline or engage with talent, create a better candidate experience, provide better data to be able to kind of tell the story around what's happening with hiring, but also process redesign. And the measures that we're now looking at in terms of the measures that we're measured against aren't just on volume, they're on things like DEI. So how we can help drive better diversity in organizations, as well as just actually deliver the candidates and make the hires. So it's a much more sophisticated business impacting solution rather than the transactional solution that RPO started out at many years ago.
It sounds like it's getting more complexity. Maybe one area where things maybe getting a little more simplicity would be that in 2020, there is consolidation, at least on the tech stack, and some companies merging into others. And perhaps that'd be a little bit of a relief for professionals in your field that, okay, instead of having 100 solutions to choose from, now we have 80. Do you feel like, is that a pain in your back to walk into customers and every time they've got, I don't know how many TA tech solutions they usually come with. What's the typical number that you walk into?
Yeah, well, in terms of, if we look at just a baseline applicant tracking system, then, we work with most of those and have done at some point. But again, our role is to kind of look at those, make sure they're operating effectively. Clients never like their applicant tracking systems.
It's universal.
Yeah, it's universal. But often it's because they've been installed or implemented, and they no longer kind of build that. They no longer fit around the processes that have changed, but the technology not changed to keep up with it. So they're trying to put a square peg into a round hole. Part of our role is to help actually, either reconfigure the technology or redesign the processes, or both. But to your point on what technology do we bring, that's unique to each solution that we're building out. And I think what we avoid doing is just implementing technology for the sake of technology. There's got to be an output there. There's got to be a reason why technology is put in place. It's got to have a benefit. And that's going to be different depending on the type of hiring, the locations, the language, and various other things that might impact the type of technology that we're building out. But fortunately, we've got an internal innovation team that do a lot of the assessing around technology, and then the advice and guidance around what technologies would fit into a particular tech stack, if there's an existing tech stack, because again, not all technologies fit into every tech stack and integrate well. So I think the challenge is less a challenge for us. It's actually a benefit for us to have that team there to be able to advise our clients. And the reason we have that team is that internal TA functions often don't have the luxury of being able to have people that are technology specialists. And with so many technologies on the market right now, doing various different parts of the end-to-end TA process, choosing the right ones become increasingly difficult, because there are a lot of good technologies out there, and the list is growing almost week over week.
Yeah, well, maybe not this week, but most weeks for sure.
Most weeks.
Yeah. And your role would entail a lot of traveling, pre-2020, I presume. And that you've had a lot of time on your hands.
Absolutely, yeah. So I probably spent maybe 2/3 of my time traveling, or at least 50% of my time traveling over the last 4 or 5 years, both to around Europe and North America and Asia as well. And this year's been very different. It's no planes, no trains. It's all been working from home, and I've enjoyed the time, because it's just given them time to kind of reflect and think in a way that when you're traveling so much, it becomes difficult to have that time to, like I said, do that reflection. And I look forward to the day when I can go and do that again, but I don't wish for that to come too soon. Because
I had the opposite reaction, where initially I thought I don't have any more time to think, because I used to think while I'm traveling, when I'm on the plane in the air. But I do have a tremendous amount of time that was created just by eliminating travel. And in your line of work, I imagine that's been replaced by double the amount of Zoom meetings and Teams and all that. And yeah.
It has, and that was kind of part and parcel of what I would do in my role every day anyway, because with a global team, we're not kind of spending our days, in the same office. We're often in parts of the world, different time zones. So Zoom was pretty familiar prior to this year, but it's certainly become more so over the last, like I said, the last few months.
I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into the art of sourcing, which is perhaps the area where your clients would, the pain points where your clients would first come to you and say, we're not getting enough quality candidates. Can you bring in the experts, because our internal talent acquisition team are just not finding the talent? Is that part of the business? I have two questions here. One part is that part of the business changed in 2020, and how? And then maybe a word about how much sourcing can be automated or rather, what are the limits of automation when it comes to sourcing? What still needs to be done manually? So I blurted out my two questions in a row, and you can answer them in whichever order you'd like.
Yeah. So in terms of where technology and sourcing kind of cross and the benefits, is that I think technology can be used really effectively, I think, to outreach and do the initial engagement with candidates. And take that through a certain element of the process of actually initial engagement. But I think it's more effective in certain roles than others. I think it's more effective at doing that with higher volume rather than more niche skills, because I think in the market today, even though we're seeing high levels of unemployment in lots of different places, I think there is still a high demand for highly skilled talent.
Yeah.
And often it's a human interaction and human contact, I think, that helps to make that engagement more effective in the first instance. But certainly engaging candidates through the recruitment lifecycle, technology can have a great impact there, because I think being able to access and get responses 24/7 at a time that's convenient for the candidate is really helpful. So through whatever platform that might be, I think that's certainly on higher volume hiring, where it's maybe lower skilled, often, like I said, larger scale candidate pools. There's definitely a greater element of technology being able to manage candidates through that sourcing cycle. But again, I think where we look at that is that's not necessarily taking humans out of the process. It's maybe freeing up people's time through technology to have a greater impact at a further point in the hiring process, because quality engagement is still really important.
Mm-hmm. And the first part of my question about whether the sourcing activities have changed in 2020, you said, I guess you answered, you said, so the jobs that are hard to find are still hard to find. So we would be thinking typically engineers and data scientists and the likes, and then industry specialists.
Yeah.
And so that, the nature of your business has not really changed much in that sense from 2020, from the sourcing side.
I think one of the things we've definitely seen in the last quarter is, I think, what's happened with COVID and the economic kind of downturn that we saw occur sort of from March, April onwards, is TA functions were heavily reduced, often down to bare bones or nothing at all. So we found that as the kind of return to work and the bounce in the economy started to happen, is those organizations that don't have a capability at all are looking to kind of give them a sourcing arm that can be very flexible and built around their needs. So it can ramp up quickly, it can scale, but it can also then scale back. And I think right now that's important for so many businesses, because they still have uncertainty in the future of their
and
own.
I read that you were there maybe, but 2009, 2010 were good years for the RPO industry.
They were, yeah. I think, coming out of the economic, the financial crash in 2000 and 2008, a very similar scenario where, organizations were very uncertain about what was to come. And particularly in, places like Europe, where if you're employing people on a permanent basis, it's not easy always to kind of make those adjustments to your business and reduce the workforce if you need to.
Right.
Because the labor laws don't allow that. But having a partner like us that can scale up and, like I said, build around those needs and scale further if needed, but scale back if the hiring ramp slows down.
So if those cuts have been made, and they would typically have been made in the areas where automation was most feasible, and according to your reasoning, and I agree with it, most of that automation would be more on the high volume side of the business. Hence, there would be more opportunities for RPO vendors and perhaps vendors like us to do more in the high volume space. The high volume space should be a big opportunity in 2021.
My prediction is that all hiring is going to be an opportunity in 2021. I don't think it will be limited to high volume. I think it will be hiring across the board. And certainly, one of the areas we're seeing huge amounts of activity right now is around sales hiring. That's from enterprise sales right the way through to sales consultants across clients. And that's because people are trying to claw back their losses that they've seen in the early parts of the year. And I think that will kind of drive through into next year's plans as well.
Maybe some of these recruiters will be able to reconvert themselves into salespeople.
Quite possibly, yeah. Quite possibly.
Not that hard of a transition if you're if you're good at it, right?
True.
And okay, well, we've talked about the kind of customers that come to you and which kind of scenario. Would you have any thoughts to spare on the kind of customers that you do not want to work with, and maybe we don't have to share names, but customers that have broken your heart or broken your spine, and what went wrong there?
I think we have some really great customers that we partner with, and I use that word really purposefully, is that they are great customers that partner with us. And I think where we've historically maybe had relationships that haven't worked out as well as we would have liked, it's where there's an expectation that we're there as a delivery arm to the business rather than operating.
You're going to blame it on the sales guys, of course.
No.
It's always their fault.
No, not the sales guys. I think it's just about having the right expectation set that, this is for hiring to be successful, whether or not it's a pure internal team or whether or not you're working with a partner like us, there's got to be kind of skin in the game, and there's got to be an upside for everybody to want to work together. And that is the way that things kind of land really well, is when we're operating in that kind of true partnership where we have the same goals and outcomes that our clients want.
I'm trying to read between the lines here. So the nightmare scenario is you're being kind of pegged against an internal team.
No, not pegged against an internal team. I think it's we're being asked to deliver on something where we maybe haven't had the ability to shape or build or give input into how something should be delivered, or when we have stakeholders that don't have an upside from our success, and those stakeholders need to benefit from us doing well for it to work. With the vast majority of the clients and the partnerships we have in place, that's absolutely the case, because that's how we build our solutions.
I have tried to sell automation sometimes to the wrong HR professionals, so I think I can relate with that kind of scenario. And also the scenario where people don't adapt their process, where we would say, no, we are an engagement tool at the front of the funnel. Do not ask the candidates 10 video interview questions on messaging. Like it's going to break. And no, that's what we want. That's what we're going to get. Okay. We wasted so much resources trying to please people sometimes, but it's rare, but it does happen.
Yeah. And I think, like yourselves, we're there to be advisors. That's our role, is to help resolve people's challenges and their problems with better solutions. And I think there's, again, where we do that and it's successful is where the client actually wants it to listen and adopt to our guidance and input and advice.
Mm-hmm. And what's the customer you've been working with for the longest time? Or you don't have to say names.
Oh, wow. Yeah. But we've got clients today that were the first clients that we ever started working with. So, they've been relationships for decades. And
Nice. That's nice. Well, I hope they had a decent 2020, and that you're right about what's coming this year and all of that business coming in. Thank you very much, Craig, for participating and sharing your insights on how the RPO industry has shifted, or it seems like has not shifted that much, a little bit less traveling for you, but overall been a good year, and things are heating up in the European market in Q3.
Great. Thank you, Max. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, Craig.
Bye.
That was Craig Sweeney from WilsonHCG, giving us hope for tomorrow and the big rebound of the recruitment and RPO industry. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you did. And if there's somebody that you'd like me to interview as part of the podcast, you can send me their names directly to hello@talkpush.com, and I'll contact them directly and invite them to tell us their secrets. Thank you for listening, and see you soon.